was a lot of excitement around the idea that the governor had prioritized housing policy in her executive budget, and around the idea that New York could follow the lead of other states like California. The governor's proposal included a mandate to rezone areas around transit stations that would increase housing, and a builder's remedy type program that would allow developers to override local zoning under certain circumstances. But the governor has struggled to get enough support for her housing compact. Erik, you've written about a number of the forces that are standing in the way of this plan moving forward. You've also indicated that the plan is, by all accounts, pretty moderate and even tame. Can you talk a little bit about why the plan is, struggling to move forward?
Well, there are several reasons. I think the number one is people are afraid of change. So people fear change, especially change that they don't understand. And housing policy is not something people think about a lot, let alone read about. And it's complicated. Maybe some of the policymakers do, or elected officials, but that doesn't mean everyday New Yorkers do. And essentially their support is very important, almost essential for this to get through. Second reason is it's very easy if you oppose this plan to sort of demagogue it, if you will, to exaggerate it, to twist it in different ways to make it seem very scary and dangerous, and it's going to change your life.
The governor and the proponents of the plan have made clear that they believe that, building, increasing supply will, make housing more affordable in New York. But advocates for tenants and low-income New Yorkers have not endorsed the plan. Why is that?
Well, if you are on the tenant advocacy side or affordable housing side, you sense an opportunity to get your agenda through. And your agenda is not so much housing supply in general, it's affordable housing production, strictly that. They're not really interested in market rate housing at all. And secondly, if you're on the tenant side, your number one mission this year, and last year for that matter, was good cause eviction or other protections for tenants. So if that's not part of the governor's plan, then politically, I guess it makes sense to oppose the governor's plan unless she includes your agenda in it.
In other states, you've seen kind of a similar pattern where the YIMBY groups have also teamed up with the tenant groups. I mean, do you think that that's the next step?
I would say, first of all, there aren't that many YIMBY groups in New York. So that's one strike against them. California has a much stronger YIMBY community, yes in my backyard, pro-housing, pro-building community than New York does. Secondly, New York's YIMBY group, Open New York, is gaining strength, but it is still fairly new. It did endorse good cause eviction and tried to make a union with tenant advocates. So, that did happen, but it's still not the strongest organization. I mean, you're talking about an organization with 3 or 4 staff members that's been around for a few years and most people have never heard of it. So it's not a huge lobbying organization like REBNY, for instance, like the Real Estate Board of New York. And those folks on the industry side who are also pro-housing supply and support the plan, they do not want good cause eviction. They do not want to fundamentally change a landlord's right to move someone out of their property when the lease is expired. And that's essentially, that's a big part of what good cause eviction is.
What will it take, you think, for policies like the transit rezonings, the builder's remedy to pass in New York?
That's not a radical idea either. But to get these things through, you have really 2 options. Like, one is to build political support. And that means, going to your political allies or to interest groups. And, this is a sort of a backroom kind of way to do it. And making deals or persuading them in one way, shape, or form to support your plan and to advocate for it. And just sort of try to get the votes in the legislature to do that. And the second way is to build public support. That is sort of go around the political establishment and just generate so much excitement among New Yorkers that they demand this change.
To your point, do you think that there has been a meaningful shift in the conversation, even if this plan doesn't move forward this session? I mean,
there has been a shift in New York City. And by that I mean, we went through this period where there was a tremendous distrust of developers, and it was very difficult for them to get projects through that required a rezoning. And most big projects in New York City do require rezoning, which means you must get the city council approval. And so they went through this stretch where, city council members were just not inclined to say yes to any plans. So there was a shift because the city council speaker, Adrienne Adams, she came out and said, I'm not going to have this council go down as a council that stops housing. Like, we're going to be a council that builds housing, that adds housing. So she saw the demand for housing supply, and she kind of behind the scenes worked her members to persuade them to say yes to a couple of big projects that were mixed income, not just market rate, but also had a lot of affordability in them. And so she sort of shifted the conversation in the council.